In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about when you choose to pull out of or back out of a deal, what some reasons for that might be, and how to do it as gracefully as possible. Let's dive right in. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to pull out of or renegotiate a deal, whether it's a wholesale, flip, or rental you're going to buy. Things don't always go according to plan. I just had one that we had to pull out of, and I'm going to walk you guys through why, as well as what that conversation looks like, and how to try to make that exit as gracefully as possible. Let's dive right in. So right off the bat, I do just want to say that I'm not a fan or a proponent of going out, locking properties up that I don't have a buyer for, hoping I can find somebody to buy it. And if not, just I have escape clauses in my contract. I'm a big believer, even if you're wholesaling, you should be negotiating deals that are so solid that even if for some reason you can't find someone to buy it, you're going to raise private money, flip it, keep it as rental, whatever yourself. This deal actually kind of fits that scenario perfectly, and I'm actually pretty bummed about this one. So let me show you this place. So it came off of a ballpoint mailer. We pulled the list through PropStream. This was absentee owners as well as owner occupants on niche lists. So things like back taxes, liens, vacant, bankruptcy, divorce, that kind of stuff, right? So here's the place. It's actually really, really cute. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, detached 2-car garage. So our plan with this thing initially was to wholesale it. We didn't get a ton of traction on kind of folks that were interested in it from a wholesale perspective. So I was like, shoot guys, you know what? Let's take this thing down. Let's remodel it a little bit, and then let's either flip it or sell it with owner financing. So we were under contract to purchase the place for $65,000. And we were planning on, we had roughly 15 to 20K budgeted for construction. Now, I'm going to show you guys why that ended up not working out. I mean, if you look at this place though, actually pretty freaking cute for $65,000. So here's where things didn't quite go so well. I have this rule that some investors might agree with, others might not, which is if I'm going to take title to a place, I'm going to do a full-blown inspection. Now, we tell sellers when we're buying their properties that we're buying as is, paying cash, closing fast, all that good stuff. But we do always tell them we are going to do an inspection. We're not ever going to ask you to fix anything, but we're just verifying our assumptions. So we're setting them up from the get-go of there's things that I can't see as I'm walking around your house, taking these pictures that I'm going to double check. Things like the electrical, the major mechanical, structural, roof, right? Those kind of big ticket items to make sure that I don't get blindsided by something. In the past, our inspections used to just be a walkthrough with our general contractor, and that worked good till it didn't, right? What I realized is ultimately when I go to sell a place, chances are that whoever's buying it from me is going to do a full-blown inspection anyway. And I would rather know what they're going to find before it's my problem than buying the place and not realizing hey, the sewer lines have roots in it and it's all collapsed and, needs a $15,000 repair or something. I would rather know that going in. We always tell our sellers, regardless of if it's a wholesale, flip, rental, owner finance, whatever we're doing with it, that during this inspection window, it's basically just us confirming our assumptions, our expectations. The reason we do that, we don't want to go under contract with somebody to purchase a property, even if we're going to say keep it as a rental, and then have them move out of the house, move out of state, go buy a boat, truck, whatever, right? And then us come back and be like, hey, this place actually has some problems. We either need to reduce our price or we can't buy the deal. So on this one, like I mentioned at the beginning, we shot it out as a wholesale, didn't really get a ton of traction on it. And I was like, you guys, this is a great looking place for $65,000. As the guy who did our home inspection put it, this is one of the nicest, worst properties he's ever seen, which isn't exactly the feedback that you want. I'm not going to pull up and go through the full 40-page inspection list, so we are just going to kind of throw up some pictures of kind of the big things that were problems that kind of blew this deal. The first being the property didn't look like it, but actually has quite a bit of live knob and tube wiring inside the walls, inside the attic, which would have been a pretty substantial increase in price, anywhere from like $5,000 to $8,000 in construction needed to rectify that. We run into it somewhat often in the Midwest, and it is one of those things that like insurance companies, inspectors are all going to flag. So it's like a problem that we're going to have to address one way or another. One kind of downside this house had going into it that we knew was on baseboard heat and window units. So it didn't have like central air conditioning, which is something that we typically look for. But because we were planning on selling the property with owner financing, wasn't as big of a concern because this kind of setup is somewhat common in this area. It's a little bit more rural than kind of where we're typically at. So we already kind of had that one strike against it of no HVAC going into it, but we've now added, okay, we've got knob and tube wiring, which is going to be $5,000 to $8,000. The roof came back of like definitely needing a new roof. They'd patched sections, shingles were like curling, granular loss, all of that. It's like, okay, we're doing a new roof. We kind of figured we would need that going into it, which is why we kind of had this $15,000, $20,000 budget, but the roof plus the knob and tube wiring, and then it gets worse. So the actual like support structure of the property is bowing. So again, kind of like, all right, typically 3 strikes and you're out. We're at 3 strikes. The attic actually had some of the worst like mold that we've ever seen in one of these properties. So I'm assuming a lot of the decking, a lot of the support stuff would have to be pulled out and redone as well. So we're now at like 4 or 5 things that ended up being wrong with this place. Basically what we decided is in order for us to move forward with the purchase of this place, given kind of these substantial issues, right? You've heard the expression like lipstick on a pig. This place actually looked pretty decent. But as you start to get into what's actually going on with it, you realize it's not exactly as it seemed. So we would need to retrade, which is effectively going back to the seller saying, hey, during the inspection, we found some issues with the property. And that is kind of this list of things. Here's what we estimate the costs on these to be. We're not asking you to like get this work done, but in order for us to purchase the property, we do have to reduce our purchase price in order for this to make sense for us. It kind of sucks because when you go under contract with somebody to buy a property, in their mind, they've typically already spent that money, right? Likely the $65,000 this gentleman was getting, he knew exactly what he was going to do with it, where it was going. And we have to come back and say, hey, not only are you not getting $65,000, but the property you owned that you thought was fine actually has some pretty serious issues wrong with it. I mean, we're talking structural problems, electrical problems, mold problems. Something I didn't even mention, the whole property is graded where in the event of heavy rainfall, like all of the water is going into the basement of this place. There were some issues with cracks and stuff in the basement as well. So not only are we saying, hey, we're not going to pay you what you thought we were going to pay you, but we're also the bearer of bad news of like, what you have actually isn't as nice as what you have, which I find often as real estate investors, that's kind of our job, just kind of like letting people know where they're at. For better, or in this instance, for worse. So this guy initially took the conversation pretty well. So keep in mind, like we're pre-framing this from the beginning. Hey, during this inspection window, we're verifying all of these assumptions. Don't move out. Don't buy a new house. Don't, go to Vegas, right? Like this isn't a done deal until we're through this inspection, until we've gotten our inspection back. And we typically take like 14 days to do that. And we'll tell them, if we get it done like day 7 or 8, hey, we're good to go. No issues. We're absolutely closing on this place, right? So this guy, we came back and said, this is the list of issues. In order to move forward, we would need to reduce the purchase price to this. He was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. That's like cutting the purchase price by half. Totally get that. Understandable. So we're just going to effectively terminate the contract. Now, your contract is really important in knowing what you're allowed and not allowed to do in it. General rule of thumb, if somebody ever tries to get you to sign a contract, whoever writes the contract tends to do so in their favor. So ours are written that during an inspection, if it doesn't go well, we get our money back. We're not out our earnest money or anything. Now, in my experience, when you have this conversation, it can be kind of rough. This one's easy, right? Because like I'm prepared to buy the place. I've got the cash sitting. The condition just isn't what we thought it was. If you're like under contract trying to wholesale a house and can't find a buyer, or maybe you're out of your inspection window and then you got your inspection response back. I've had that happen where like we just took too long, inspector was backed up, in which case they do get my earnest money per the agreement. Our contracts aren't written with that, like I can get out of this deal for any reason, you know, if my cat doesn't approve of it or whatever. It's literally just, we're going to inspect the place, verify our assumptions. If that doesn't go well, we can get our cash back, right? So best thing you can do is kind of pre-frame them to not do anything during your inspection window. Let them know, hey, you've got a done deal when you've got it, and then know kind of what your contract allows you to do or not to do. In this instance, it's kind of pretty typical. The guy was fine on the phone and then started to freak out via text, right? Like, well, I'm going to get that earnest money, right? We have to like, well, no, you know, per the agreement you signed, we went into, we were very clear up front. During the inspection window, problems were uncovered, so we're not going to be able to move forward with the purchase. You still own the house, all that good stuff. You're free to try to sell it to somebody else, but we are getting our money back. I feel like as real estate investors, especially those of us that have platforms, often we talk about like just at a wholesale, bought a new flip, new rental, look at the cash flow, you know, check out like my Ferrari, whatever. But we often don't talk about the deals that don't go well or don't pan out. And this is one, to be honest, I'm kind of bummed about. Like literally cash sitting, ready to go. Can't buy the place, doesn't make sense. Seller doesn't want to reduce, right? So this is one we'll follow up with, you know, hey, have you found anybody else willing to buy it, you know, for more than where we're at now? No. Okay. Do you want to reconsider our offer? But likely these don't tend to pan out when you're under contract and then try to retrade and they don't want to play ball. So that is just in a nutshell what we do when an inspection comes back bad, how we try to retrade, and then like what happens if they don't want to retrade. One quick note, if you're filing NOIs, which is a notice of interest or can be called a memorandum of contract, basically clouds title so that somebody else can't like skirt around you and snake the deal. You have to make sure you're pulling those off in situations like this. Otherwise, you can get sued for illegally or fraudulently clouding title. So we always do that. So we did have to go through and pull that off. Again, my name is Ryan Dossey. Hopefully you found kind of just this inside look at sometimes deals don't pan out helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll talk to y'all next time.